Welcome back. This is part 2 of the construction of a retractable mobile base. If you haven't seen the first part, this second part might not make a lot of sense, but it's a free country. Enjoy the show. And turn off your cell phone.
Okay, so off camera I did all the drilling and boring at the drill press, and now the next step is to mark off the areas that need to be cut away for clearance for the middle panel, because the middle panel is going to have the crank arm attached and it has to be able to swing back and forth like this. Same for the link. So we're going to mark off some clearance. Now this might be a bit of a surprise, but we're going to mark the clearance on this top panel, and the top panel is going to become the middle section. So the second and third will be the two outer panels. This top one will end up being in the middle for the motion, to help control the motion. Okay, so we'll put some 1/4 inch dowels in the 3 points and mark off the clearance that we need around the corner. So I'll mark these with a green colored pen, and don't worry if they're not visible just yet, because I'll go over them a little bit later with a Sharpie. So this little cardboard compass that I'm using is a 1/4 inch hole with a smaller hole 3/4 of an inch away. So the top one doesn't need very much. And we'll do the same for the lower triangle. Okay, and now we want to make a little bit of additional clearance for the swing arms, for the link and the crank arm as well. So I have here a 5/16 inch wide piece of scrap. So 5/16, if this were lined up with the center of the triangles, that would be 3/4 of an inch, and that represents half the width of the link or the crank arm. And so we'll just join these points. So this rounded triangle is going to be the portion that we're going to cut away, so that the control arm will have clearance in the middle section. And of course, sorry, I called it a control arm, it's the link. It'll have its corners rounded. For the upper portion, things are a little more complicated, but not unimaginably. So, on this side, we need this. Because it's going to be open on the top, we'll need the bottom to be open as well. So here we can just drop a perpendicular. Now, on this side, we'll start with the 5/16 inch batten, and we'll be cutting away up here. When the crank arm is in this position, it'll need this portion open. When it's in this position, it'll have to have an opening here on that side. So we'll get that like this. Now this, Don't worry if this doesn't become completely understood. As long as you're able to follow the directions, that'll be good enough. Take the triangle that you used earlier and line it up on the upper side. Then take a 3/4 inch piece of scrap and nibble off this portion. The reason we're doing this is because when the bottom part moves over, this hole will find itself over here. And when it does, the crank will be in this orientation. But the bottom part will have moved. And so this is clearance for that. Now, if that's not clear and visualizable, don't worry about it. As long as you can follow this, so the side of the paper triangle against the side of the wooden one, 3/4 of an inch, and draw this line. And the material that's going to disappear is this. And we also want to, while it was there, you could have just continued on down right through to the bottom. So we're going to be cutting out the bottom so that dust and stuff can fall through. And I think there's one more that we need to draw in. And that's here.
So I didn't need a Sharpie after all. It turns out that the green pen is showing up just fine. So I hatched in the areas that are going to be cut away on the bandsaw in the green pen. Now I'm pointing to a skewer hole that ended up being in the area that's going to get cut away. So I'm going to add another one just a little bit to the left. And I also realized at this point that I needed to provide a couple of skewer holes for the upper section. So in the next photograph, you'll see that there's a couple of circled holes with S's marked beside them. So those are skewer holes that should have been there all along. So there they are, 2 new skewer holes in the upper portion and a replacement skewer hole at the bottom left.
The next step is to pry off the top layer and to cut out the areas that are hatched in green on the bandsaw. This we keep, this we toss. This we keep, this we toss. I separated the other 2 pieces. One of them is down here on the bottom. The piece that came back from the bandsaw, I laid it on top using the alignment skewers to get things into position. And I have the link over here. I'll put it in the upright position. In other words, this is where the link would be when the bandsaw has been hoisted onto its wheels. And I see a bit of an error here. In the upright position, I have not given myself 3 inches of clearance for this corner. When the bandsaw is up on its wheels, the bottom half of this base shifts over by 3 inches. So there needs to be 3 inches of clearance through to the link. And 3 inches of clearance has us be over here. So the same thinking that made us nip this corner off over here is going to have us do a little bit of surgery down here. There's 3 inches. I'll be removing this portion. Okay, let's glue the panels together.
Jay would have us eating chips at this point.